Hello, beautiful people. It's Miss Marisha, your host of The Essentials, which I'm super excited because today is episode 4, and we celebrated World Mental Health Day yesterday. So I'm really excited that today's conversation and our guest is actually going to kind of coincide, coincidentally, with the World Mental Health Day celebration that fell on yesterday. But before we hop into the call, which I do see our guest is is finally here, we connected. But before we do that, I want to actually just kind of guide us to take a moment to just be. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you're with, just reach out, touch them, remind them to just pause, just be, just breathe, feel, breathe. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Just be, just breathe. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring your attention back into this space. And with that, I'm gonna actually just bring our guest on and we're gonna get this conversation started because I think this is a good way to segue. Let's see. Waiting on Vanceology, which I'm excited. Hey!
Hello.
Hello, Dr. Vance. How are you?
Pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. It's another day to be great.
You know what? I'm with that. I'm ready to be great, and I'm ready to have this conversation with you to help others be great as well.
Absolutely.
Such a timely conversation, right? Yesterday, as we just shared, was World Mental Health Day. So it's kind of interesting that we planned this months
Yeah.
ago and had no idea that would be the nature of what we're kind of experiencing globally right now, which aligns perfectly with our conversation. So I'm curious to know, first of all, your handle's really cool. What does that mean before we get into this conversation?
Vanceology. Well, ology is the study of, and Vance is my name. So it's kind of like the study of me. So I created a name years ago because I was a psychology major, and I was like, well, I'm just going to make it Vanceology to really make it a little bit more personal and everything that way.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. I was like, I need to know the story behind this. Oh, well, as you all know, we've been doing this for the last 4 weeks now.
Yeah.
And, the Essentials is all about just that. What are those life skills, those essential life skills, mindset, practices, or tools that we can begin to implement in our lives every day, but especially when adversity arises,
Yeah.
right? And so we've had different professionals come on and creative leaders to kind of share what their essentials have been as it relates to different areas of wellness. And so this week we are having the conversation centered around our mental well-being. But before I always get into those details, I always like to kind of create a space where we feel like we know know each other, right? And we're sharing something about ourselves, something a little, personal that we've experienced, so that people can know, hey, I'm not just sharing these things. I've lived through a couple of things too, right?
Yeah.
And what essential solutions you utilize to really kind of navigate those difficult times. So that's how we kind of ground and open the conversation. So I'd love to hear from you. It could be a personal journey, it could be a professional experience, or maybe a combination of the two. But I'd love to just kind of hear a little bit about an experience or encounter that you've had in your lifetime that you might consider to be an adversity, and what essential solutions did you really employ to navigate around that?
Yeah, thanks so much. I will actually say the whole year of 2020
Right.
has just really just been throwing off everything I thought I wanted to do. I'm not doing everything that I am doing. I didn't plan to do. So this year I had my whole, goals for 2020. I'm going to travel. I'm going to eat my vegetables. I'm going to hang out with friends. I'm going to be the president. But 2020 said no, not this year. And so. Currently, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been here roughly almost 2 months now from New York City.
So you're brand new.
Yes, I moved in the midst of the pandemic. Earlier this year, I was a professor teaching, in the middle of Manhattan, and life was good. It was as good as it can be good. And then I ended up, changing career paths and figuring out where do I want to live, plant roots. What would be best for me long term? And this job came up, in private practice, and I decided to just pick up everything, sell everything that I owned, except books and clothes, and just move across the country and really just adjust. And so I'm not going to call it adversity. I'm going to call it, a new stage of growth where I have to really exercise, all of my tools that I have developed over the years. So that has been, being okay that my plans didn't go through. So it's okay that I didn't get the chance to leave the country yet. It's okay that, that I might have put on a couple more pounds because the gym has closed. It's okay that you're not eating as clean as you thought you would, or what Instagram tells you. So one is recognizing, that these are all traumatic experiences that nobody is aware of. So I'm talking specifically around the pandemic. I'm talking, racial trauma is not new for Black folks and other folks of color, but it has been more prevalent in discussion where we're forced to talk about it more. So that is a new context where we actually have to put a lot of more emotional labor. So those are two different areas that have to be really, really aware of. And then moving is just stressful, just in general for anybody. And changing career paths from going from the classroom into clinical practice again.
Yes.
And I have taught myself to be self-compassionate for myself. And that includes just telling myself it's okay that you gain weight. Your body is literally trying to survive in the midst of the pandemic. Giving myself grace if I don't know anything or know my next step. Giving myself grace and compassion that, your apartment's a little empty right now, but you literally are purging from things that you used once and new. And that's okay. We're all grieving, essentially. We're grieving those trips that we didn't get a chance to go on. We're grieving our jobs. We're grieving our connection with family and friends. And recognizing that and putting it in a grief and traumatic context is something that we can really focus on and grow in. So now that I'm down here in Georgia, I have been, focusing on exercising, focusing on what I'm eating, gut health, focusing on trying to build my own social network. Social network is an essential for everyone. So I want to make sure we really highlight that your social support, family, friends, new friends, and then also, again, it's okay to not know where to find those social support, especially as an adult. In a new job.
And in the pandemic, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so a lot of my experience so far has been, it forced me to be more creative. So people, when they look at my IG, they think about well, how do you know what topics you're going to post about? And honestly, it comes up with just everyday life, whatever I'm going through.
Yes.
I flip it and make it in a positive context of my own mental health and psychology background. One of the greatest tools that I have is my education, and why not use that on myself So a lot of things that I post are not for y'all, it's for me. And then just other people just happen to connect.
Yes.
And that has been a great outlet to really, connect my mind, body, and spirit together and really ground myself.
Ooh, there was so much
Yeah.
in that. Oh, I loved all of it. The self-compassion where you started with, hey, I don't really know.
Yeah.
But guess what? No one else does either. And
Absolutely.
even before the pandemic, guess what? We didn't all know. We were all
Absolutely.
figuring it out, right? I think it's this time is really highlighting that for us, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all figuring it out, literally,
Yeah.
day by day, moment by moment. So that self-compassion piece speaks volumes, right? And being okay with the now, being unfamiliar,
Yeah.
right? And as you mentioned, an opportunity for growth. It's a blank slate right now,
Yeah.
right? And we literally get to paint the picture of what life reimagined looks like for us right now.
Absolutely. There's a great quote that I always go by, and it says that you don't got to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And if P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Diddy can change his name
whatever he
and
is
reset
today.
over and over and over, so can you. And I always keep that in our mindset that you literally can reset your life direction as many times as you want and as frequently as you need.
I love that so much. Reinvention is it's part of evolution, right?
Yeah.
Because every stage you're something new. You've grown, you've learned something, and failure is part of the learning process, right?
Yeah.
or shifting and pivoting is part of the growth and learning process. So yes, having that self-compassion, super critical. I love that. I love that. First of all, you named moving, the changing careers. I mean, you had so many different shifts and pivots and things kind of where it was either life made it that way or you were choosing, right?
Yeah.
You were deliberate. That intentional living, I think, is another essential, right? Essential skill that we have to have. It's like once we decide, life kind of just naturally starts to unfold for us, but we've got to be okay with choosing sometimes, right?
Choose the life that you want to live.
What was that?
It's a choose the life that you want to live.
Absolutely.
It's not always going to be easy, and sometimes you don't have a choice but to just do. And once you just do and decide to live, that is when you'll find your greatest passion.
Yes. It's you creating your own script versus kind of, subscribing to this social script or the family or the tradition or your cultures. Like, here's what you're supposed to do, right? That checklist that we all seem to kind of be, this invisible checklist, right? There isn't a blueprint. We get to create that. And so I love that you have kind of shared, it's not necessarily an adversity as which language is critical. It sounds like you have this understanding that even choosing certain words to describe your experience has been critical in allowing you to really navigate this with as much ease, fun, and flow as possible. I love this.
Because what would happen if we decide to choose our challenges to something positive? You really have a choice to how you want to frame things. So just because it's not my path that I decide to be, doesn't mean it's not the right one. Life is not about, finding yourself, that end goal. Life is truly about creating yourself. So creating the life that you want to live, choosing the life that you want to live. And it's okay if it's the wrong lane as well, it's the wrong path. And you're like, no, actually that wasn't the right move. And that's where self-compassion really kicks in.
Yeah, but and back to your point though, it is the right move in allowing you to know that there's a different preference that you have and fit, right? So it's we're always kind of being guided and the different experiences that we have, whether again we want to call them favorable or desirable or undesirable, they're all part of our compass. They're really helping us navigate, right? So I love that you're choosing language also as an essential skill to kind of help you reframe. And one of my favorite that you mentioned, which was the last one, was that piece on creativity and allowing, just this experimentation sort of with everyday life experiences to kind of create this sense of inspired action on what to share and how you want to express, you know, what you're sharing, whether it's imagery or even text on IG, or I don't know, perhaps there are other things that you're exploring as it relates to creativity. But I really love that specific idea of play and experimentation and just kind of exploring.
Yeah, and sometimes life challenges will cause you to be creative. So in the midst of the pandemic that we're currently in, I don't like to say in the middle because we don't know when the end is.
Right.
We can't really say, you know,
I've not heard it phrased like that, so that is a good point.
Everybody, I've been trying to reframe my whole mindset, specifically around the pandemic. Everybody's like, oh, we're in the middle of the pandemic. And I was like, well, actually, we're in the midst of the pandemic. And then everybody puts their plans and they build their life about when it's going to end. You know, and nobody knows when it's going to end. And when you hold this idea about the future that literally does not exist, you know, you alter your life and how you want it to go. So my suggestion or my goal for myself is just to live now, be in the present. You know, not saying to go be reckless and do whatever, but you know, live
YOLO.
now. Yeah, you know, create the life that you want to live now. Since this pandemic, it has really forced me to think outside the box that I have been trained in clinically, that I've been, how my teaching habits have been, and also how I see life. And I think this is what the world needs. Our spiritual world needs this. Our physical world needs this. Our emotional world needs this. This gives us a chance for us to think outside the box creatively. And that can still be, you know, bringing in your personal life and your professional life and figuring out how to reinvent yourself.
Yes. Absolutely. No, oh my gosh. You're literally speaking my language right now. And, it's funny because it's not even just the words that you're saying. Like, I can tell from, your body language and the passion and your pitch and tone. It's like, I'm literally so drawn to people who are thinking this way during this time, right? Because there are opportunities in chaos if we just give ourselves time to surrender and say, okay, what is this trying to tell me? And so this deliberate, kind of mindfulness, that this is mindfulness. Living, breathing mindfulness, right? Not just this term, this kind of buzzword that we're hearing, but this is an actual practice of mindfulness, right?
Absolutely.
And so you're literally looking at what are kind of my habits that either elevate me, right, or are consuming me, and in an unhealthy way where I'm not being replenished to really show up and be who I need to be. And to your point, be who you need to be first for you.
Yes.
But then as a result, it kind of serves you being you, kind of serves as this invitation for other people to start seeing how to be as well.
And
right?
It's okay not to know. And it's okay to feel sad and angry and upset. I wish I could sit here and tell everyone, oh, mindfulness, I just sat there and eat, pray, love, and absolutely not. I don't want to call my friends crying, like, why did I move here? Is this the right decision for me? Like, I miss New York, and I'm writing in my journal, like, what the heck did I do? Like, I wish it was an easy, simple process, but that is where growth really happens. Is when you have to sit there and deal with yourself. And that's really, really hard to really be real with yourself and just say, I actually don't know. And there's power in not knowing. There's power in the unknown.
Yeah. And I think that's what, I love working with kids and always have. I teach, I have big babies these days. I'm also at the university. I'm at Arizona State University in their integrative health initiative. So we talk all things stress management and mindfulness and all of that. But, there's just this with going back to working with kids, they have this sort of uninhibited way of being, right? And everything is, they're just curious. And, maybe I plop down on my diaper butt because I'm just learning to walk, but I still get up again with this joy. And again, this kind of perception of the world around me is awesome, and I, in this world, am also awesome, but I'm still figuring it out, right? And sometimes I plop down, but, so I really love this kind of idea of baby steps, right? Literal baby steps, taking baby steps. But then this ability to see the beauty in contrast, right? The downs, the plopping down,
Yeah.
right? And those moments where you're just kind of up and alert and curious and in flow, right? So I love that so much.
And viewing yourself from a developmental model. I tell people all the time that developmentally, you are exactly where you're meant to be. And if you look at yourself from a developmental model, knowing that you're going to mess up, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to grow, and you're not going to do those mistakes as frequent, is the best way to keep yourself grounded, the best way to keep yourself self-compassion. And so keeping yourself in knowing that developmentally you're growing, you're changing. And that's something about emotional health specifically. A lot of times when we talk about healing, people equate it as like a hurt arm. So if I hurt my arm, it heals and I no longer feel pain. But that's not how emotional health works. When we talk about healing, it's an ongoing developmental process. So just because you have worked through some challenges with therapy or self-help books or whatever method that you use, doesn't mean that you're still not going to feel those things.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean that you haven't healed. It just means that it just impacts you less. And we need to keep, making that the mindset when we talk about emotional mental health, that healing is an ongoing process, and it happens developmentally as well.
I love this. Okay, so let's actually segue, because we spent the majority of time kind of talking about you and the transitions you were making and how you use different essential solutions to kind of assist you in that. But we did start kind of seeping into some approaches, some mindsets that and different frameworks in which we, the audience here, and the rest of us can start to employ to think about how do we really leverage this time right now. So you just mentioned this idea of looking at our emotional health, our emotional well-being, and I guess when we talk about well-being, we can use also words like harmony, right? Ease, balance, so that we're, again, kind of everybody now needs to be on the same page. So let's talk about let's do some definition stuff. So we can start at the bare beginning, right? Getting back to the basics. So let's take it there first, and then how can we actually utilize different tools or different frameworks that would essentially ease us into that well-being state.
Yes, definitely. So when we're talking about our mental health, we're talking about the wellness of our mentality, our psyche. So mental health is an ongoing process. So things that you're doing, tools that you're doing to regulate, to keep up with your overall health mentally. Mental distress are things that distract, things that impact your mental health, negatively. So mental wellness is just the overall tools that we are using to increase our mental health. So it's so important to continue to focus on mental wellness. That means reducing toxic behaviors from ourselves and others by creating boundaries. That could be going to therapy, that could be journaling. Those are focusing on your mental wellness to increase your mental health. So those are like some of the basic definition around mental health, mental wellness, and mental distress.
And so I think too that it is encompassing of not only what's going on, as you mentioned, psychologically, right? But then you also have the social, right? And the emotional that's going on, right? And so it affects how we feel, how we think, the decisions that we make day to day, all of these different things. So okay, let's go there. We have some basic definitions. Now let's transition to how might this impact us, and also maybe how can we sort of be alert if we're experiencing, as you mentioned, that mental distress.
Yeah, there's a lot of mental health challenges that all of us experiences literally all the time, daily. Even if you're aware or not aware of it. So that can be maybe feeling, tired all the time. Those are some like alarms in your body, or maybe that can be oversleeping, that can be undersleeping, that can be overeating, that can be undereating, that can be, feeling agitated or irritated all the time. That can be extended time of sadness, having a lot of worries for the future, or having past distress from the past, which is depression. And those are alarms. Those are things. When I get stressed, and I know something's off balance, the first thing to go for me is my diet. I am a vegan, so I can tell when I'm starting to like carve out all the time. It's like, uh-oh, like something that I'm either
Right.
aware of or not aware of
Right.
is going on, and I need to address it.
Yeah.
And so you have to literally listen to our bodies. And, a lot of research shows that when we talk about Black and other folks of color, we start to feel it somatically, which means in our body. So that could be headaches, that could be stomach pains, that could be aches in the body. Sometimes people are saying like, oh, I have all these headaches all the time. And if it's not your eye health care, then most likely it could be your health, your mental health, feeling stress. And right now in our current social political climate, we are under a lot of stress, and it's tapping into a lot of our generational traumas that all of us have that either we're aware of or not aware of, that's popping out.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So there were quite a few things there that you addressed that I want to make sure that we kind of circle back to. So one, I think I'll phrase it another way. And I like to use this analogy of the GPS, right? So our GPS, when we're trying to get from point A to point B, right, those 2 data points, we often enter first where we want to go, right?
Yeah.
And so in this case, where we want to go is that ease, fun, flow, harmony, right? We're trying to get to mental well-being, right? Stability. But we forget that we also have to understand where we are so that we can figure out what is the best path from where I am to get to that end destination, right? So I love that you're acknowledging, hey, pay attention to, in your case, diet. If you notice when you're under stress, your diet choices, right, begin to decline.
Absolutely.
Right? Maybe there are moods or different, ways in which you tend to express yourself, or your sleep, as you mentioned, right? So paying attention to what that internal GPS is saying for you, right?
Yes, definitely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yourself. There's African proverb that says all knowledge begins with self. And so we have to be aware of who you are, how do you respond to life challenges, and actually what do you need. And I'm really, I want people to really understand that there's a difference between what you want and what you need. We want lots of stuff that will so-called make us happy. What do you actually need at the moment when it comes to your mental health?
What are those essentials,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Hence the name. Hence the name, right? Yeah, I love that. Okay. And so what do you recommend? I hear a lot of people say, and we do live in the information age, right? So there's so much being, thrown at us. Do this diet, or read this book, or the latest, again, mindfulness or other buzzword fill it in trend, right? But how do they get started? Again, kind of going back to the basics. What do you recommend if they're noticing, again, certain patterns in terms of how they're responding to stress? What are the steps to kind of, those baby steps, going back to that again, but what are the steps to kind of put some new habits in motion, essentially?
I think it goes back to what you were talking about earlier with harmony and balance. A lot of times when we're feeling distress, something is off balance. So when I first moved here to Atlanta, the first thing that I felt off balance is my social life. Doesn't mean that I'm hyper-social, but just that emotional connection, that intimacy that I had with my friends around me was something that I was lacking. And that causes me to feel like you're alone and isolated. And that's another, epidemic that's happening here in the U.S. is loneliness. That often gets, underrated, under talked about. There's actually a public health issue. So step number one is figuring out what is off balance in your life, or what do you need to make yourself feel balanced. So, what do you need in your diet? What do you need in your social life? What do you need in your physical life? What do you need in your spiritual life? All of those things come in some form of a balance. And so figuring out where you're lacking, and perhaps, what you're lacking means for you. So for me, social life, like, what does social life actually mean for me? It means for like my extended family. It means I'm able to connect and bounce ideas off of. It means that I'm able to get feedback from other people. And when I don't have that, it makes me feel alone. And so that is how you're able to dig a little bit deeper of areas that you're actually maybe need a little bit more.
Yeah, I love this so much. And you know, as I hear you talking, it reminds me of again, another analogy
Yeah.
that I share with my students is the looking at our lives like a treasure chest,
Yeah.
right? And so people tend to keep what in their treasure chest?
Yeah, the most
Things that
important
they value,
valuables. Yes.
things like that, right? And so our treasure chest is only supposed to hold what we see as valuable.
Yes.
And that may look different for you than it does for me, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of dumping out the treasure chest, what's in there right now,
Yes.
because sometimes we're holding on to, again, those belief systems and
Yeah.
habits and things that we've developed from our sources of influence, right?
Yeah.
It could be school, it could be family, it could be what we see in the media, it could be just our own habits and defense mechanisms, et cetera, that we've, again, kind of picked up along our journey.
Yeah.
And so dumping it out and really assessing, as you mentioned, spiritual life, what's there? You know, health and wellness, what's there? Are these things that I value? Are these things that are really creating that sense of harmony, ease, fun, flow, balance? And if not, let's purge. So now that I create more space to be able to have for the things that I really truly value and those essentials that are going to actually align and make sure that I'm actually, you know, cultivating that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said values because, you know, sometimes our values are warped by what we think other people want for us in our own life. You know, I have this love-hate relationship with social media. Like, I absolutely love it because I have met great people. I'm able to connect with people. I'm able to learn and grow. And also, I dislike it because at times we are constantly social comparing ourselves to other people. That kind of like influences our own value. So that could be material things, you know, why that I'm not traveling to Tulum like everybody else, or, you know, why, you know, why don't I have this thing, or why I'm not made up, and why I'm not in relationships, and there's so many different areas of our life that is not actually our values, but things that we are constantly seeing that we're trying to adopt in our values that doesn't actually exist. So that's something that we have to really figure out. And I tell people all the time to write down your values. You know, what do you actually value? And is this a value that you say that you value, or what you so-called should be valuing?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So exploring, you know, I look at assessing our values from two places. One, by the actual things that you prioritize in your life, right? So maybe you say you value X, but you're doing everything else that values Z, that demonstrates that you value Z, right? And so what are you currently displaying as your value system? And then maybe let's peel that back so that you can start to define and adjust in terms of how you're showing up, the new choices that you're making that align to what you're saying you truly value and want.
And how and where are we adopting these belief systems, these values from? And a lot of it is influence. So I'm a big proponent of intersectionality. So having our multiple identities intersect and also have different experiences of privileges and oppression. And currently it's really, really important to be aware of our privileges and oppression and how that also stems from our value system. So if I am male identified, my value system is going to be how I'm socialized, how I experience the world, how I show up in the world, and that can be a big influence in those spaces. So being aware of that, and also deciding, do you want to accept that or reject that? And if you decide to reject certain cultural norms, what are you going to do to shift, to unlearn that stuff and shift your own behaviors to grow? You know, everything is about growth and healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there are certainly professional, you know, resources out there that can support you. Obviously, your professional background, which jump in here really quick and kind of share that a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So I'm clinical practice. So I did my undergrad degree in psychology, minor in sociology. I did my master's in clinical mental health counseling. I did my PhD in counseling psychology. I went off to my residency in just multicultural psychology. I did a postdoctorate in clinical research, you know, which is why I moved to New York, because I went to Columbia. And then from Columbia, I went to the New School for Social Research, where I did research and teaching. And my claim to fame is basically this intersectional, multicultural framework that's rooted in a social justice perspective. And I want to be that clinician and researcher that people have access to. Sometimes I think in my field of psychology, people get perceived as this elusive, this mysterious person. And I want people to feel comfortable talking about mental health, identifying mental health professionals, and then being able to see me as a regular, everyday person. I am not, better equipped than the next person beside me. I'm just more familiar with tools, and that I also struggle with lots of things that my neighbors also struggle with, and that I'm not exempt as well. So I try to use my social media to try to be as personal as I can. And of course, having boundaries, but making sure that people are aware that, oh, that's Dr. Vance, and like, he's a regular person like everyone else. And that's the message I want in my journey. I think it's my own personal path. It's really normalizing mental health, not just the topic of mental health, but actually who's providing mental health and being out there as well.
Ooh, so many good things. And I love the piece too that you were able to kind of start seeing what was working for you specifically. So yes, you know that there are, which is where this whole conversation began, there are those professional resources that we can reach out to, but there's also those kind of DIYs, if you will. Right? There's things that you can do, to kind of minimize the impact of all the crazy that's going on in life. Right?
And so here are maybe my top 5 essential toolboxes that I use in my own life. So essential number 1 is, give yourself some quiet time. You can call it meditation. You can call it just sitting there, mindfulness. The minute you wake up, I personally just sit and not look on Instagram, not check my emails, not check my text messages, but just give myself time to just be with myself. And so I usually get out of bed and start having movement. So essential 2 is movement. I do a deep stretch. We need to awaken our body and stretch. I'm not great at yoga. Yoga's hard, but I stretch.
Same.
Move your body from your crown down to your feet and awaken your body so you can awaken your mind, so you can awaken your spirit, so you can awaken your emotions. 3, journal. I'm an avid journaler. I guess that's a word.
Journaler.
A person who journals.
Hey, Vanceology, you make up words around here. It's all good.
Yes. I love journaling, and sometimes people say, well, I don't know what to journal about. Free associate. Sometimes whatever's weighing heavy on my heart, my mind, my spirit, I might just write out that word and just keep journaling it and let my mind just go. Sometimes, our mind and spirit holds on to things that really we want to get out, and that maybe we don't even know the phrases or the language to actually put it out. Journaling doesn't necessarily have to be, a Moesha Dear Journal, that's who had me messed up today. It could be writing a poem. It can be, writing a short story. It can be anything that, you want to put words to. So just journaling, write a picture, draw a picture. That is also a form of journaling, is just letting your mind create. Maybe my 4th essential would be exercise, which is also another form of movement. Really exercising. Roughly, all the research really supports that roughly 25-30 minutes of cardio exercise, it's like taking a small antidepressant pill, because you're releasing a lot of endorphins in your brain. That's very, very helpful for this sweating and moving and clearing your mind. So exercise is number 4. Number 5 is also staying grounded to my social support. I love my friends. I love my new friends that I'm developing. And I'm the type of person that I would call my friends just to shoot the brakes with.
Hey, it's all good. Whichever word you want to fill that in with.
Just like connecting, because it's so important to remind yourself that you're not alone. And even though that sometimes it might feel like you're alone, that you're actually not. And sometimes you don't have to talk about problems. I think a lot of times you think about social support, everybody always wants to talk about what's bad in the world. What will happen if you decide to call friends and talk about what is good in your life and what is good in their life, and you would literally shift the whole narrative of your mind, body, and spirit.
I'm just going to cut this part out. This is going to be the only thing that I use to promote this. This one piece right here. If people understood which goes back to what we kind of talked about in the beginning, the power of our words.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And how that shifts the energy that we're harboring as it relates to the different experiences that we're witnessing, right?
Yes.
It shifts.
Yeah.
And that is contagious energy that we're passing on. Like we're teaching literally other people how to also shift that language, shift that perspective, and ultimately shift the experiences that we have, right?
And it takes practice to do that. You know, every New Year's Eve, I see all the posts that everybody's cutting out all these toxic folks out my life. You know, but sometimes you are the toxic person. And it's okay to be toxic because all of us have some type of toxic traits and behaviors that all of us have. You know, when I teach, I tell everybody's problematic, but our goal in life is to be least problematic. Our goal is to be aware and say, "Ooh, I actually do have these toxic behaviors that I do, and I need to do better." And so just recognizing that is powerful, and then also practicing that. It takes practice to reduce our own toxic behaviors that we all engage in. So that is having a negative attitude. I tend to lean more on being an optimistic person, and also I can also be pessimistic and negative. And people are like, "Oh, you're a therapist. You're not supposed to be like that." And I was like, "Hey, no, I can have the same feelings as everybody else." So it's so important to practice being optimism, and practice being grateful. You know, a grateful journal is something that I tell people all the time to do. The minute you wake up, you know, write down things that you are grateful for, and it will literally shift your mind. It will literally shift your perspective of life. You know, being grateful can be, you know, I am grateful that it's not raining today. It's raining today right now, but I'm grateful that it's not raining, or I'm grateful that I have breath in my body. You know, those are the things that we have to really be focused on is gratitude of life. Because we don't know where life's going to take us, but you're going to end up at a destination.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. The social connections is so critical right now, and I really, really love that is one of your top 5, is making sure that you have that. The village matters.
Yes.
The village really matters. And especially the village that has the mindset of ascend, right? Of ease, of harmony. And so you're kind of on this you're on the same page with the language that you use. Maybe, you know, showing up and deciding, hey, what ease, fun, and flow and harmony looks like for you may be different from me, but let's hold each other accountable, right? Like you're even challenging each other to step up and be your best.
And calling out each other. You know, your pride is not just about, you know, cheering you on. It's also about saying, "Oh, friend, like you need to go back and like practice that a little bit more." And I you know, my friends do that for me. They're like, "Now, Vance, like you know better. Come on, let's get it together." That's really, really important because that is a genuine, authentic relationship. You know, you want to be genuine in your most authentic self as possible with your tribe. You know, there's another African proverb that says that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. You know, so take your tribe and go far. You know, it's not always about how fast you go in life, but how far you actually go.
Yeah. And being appreciative of every part of that journey, I think, as you mentioned, with the gratitude piece, right? And so I love that so much. Just seeing the beauty in the contrast. I think that's my phrase for the year is just, hey, there's wild, there's calm. There's favorable, there's unfavorable. Contrast,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Part of life.
And you can learn from that. So that's diversity of thought as well.
What was that?
There's diversity of thought. You know, those differences, you know, really can help you grow in areas that maybe you are uncomfortable with.
Yeah. Oh, I love this so much. Okay. We could go on and on forever.
Yeah, we'll have part 2 in the future.
We'll definitely have to link again because this is so good. Okay. Let's close this out because we did call this particular episode Cry and Heal, right? So there was a post that you shared. This is clearly in your new creative phase because I'm starting to see more from you. And this cool combination of blues that you're using on your post. I really love that color as well, by the way. So
Thanks. I keep it
The creativity,
up.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. But you had a post on
Oh, crying and
crying and
healing.
healing, and how those are essentially messages from our heart.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, and how that kind of plays into this conversation
Yeah.
of
So
yeah.
I'm a crier, and I'm not afraid to admit it. You know, if I watch a sad movie or if I hear a moving story, I'm an empath. So it really hits my heart. And sometimes when we cry, it's our heart trying to tell us a message, our heart trying to say something that perhaps we don't have the language just yet to say. And crying doesn't necessarily mean sadness. Crying can be joy. Crying can be being grateful. You know, crying can be a moment of healing. You know, so when people are crying because they are, you know, trying to move past, you know, challenging things in their life, that is a part of healing. So if you are crying, you're healing. You know, that's a good thing. You know, you should be really scared if devastating things happen to you and you're not crying. You know, you need to come and take a card from me and let's chat. Because perhaps there's some other things that are going on. But yeah, crying are the voices from the heart. And it's okay to cry. It's okay to, you know, if you're crying every single day because you just don't know, that is okay. That's where self-compassion comes in. You know, I cry when I'm really thankful. I cry when I'm feeling stressed and sad and like I don't even know what to do, so I just cry. That's okay. That is doing something. That is relieving the pressure that is locked inside your body. It's a moment of healing, you know, your moment of healing, your moment of trying to send the world a message that you're here, that you're existing, and that your heart needs to be seen.
Ooh, I love that. Your heart needs to be seen.
Yes.
Oh. And this goes back to that idea too of authenticity. And I think that in normalizing crying, right, it's showing our self-compassion and accepting that there's something that's trying to move through us, and this is just how it's coming out, right? This is how it's showing up for us.
And realizing that being authentic is a privilege. So I don't take that lightly, you know, being authentic. Everybody's like, oh, be your authentic self. Sometimes people can't be their authentic self due to their identities that they all hold. And so my solution is to practice what that might look like. So practice your authenticity is something that I would really urge people to try out.
I love this so much. Okay. So for the people, this is where we kind of share resources that people can, you know, kind of go out and look up for themselves as a way to kind of move through, or to, I should say, our mental wellness, right? That end destination, the harmony, balance, ease. So what are some resources that you would, we have an interesting question here. I love this. When is the book coming?
Well, it's actually coming soon, so just be on the lookout.
Okay. So someone's a little prophesying over here. Is that what's happening?
You know, books is you know, recently been chatting with a publishing house to talk about a book, and I really want to write a book specifically around millennials. You know, with different marginalized identities, specifically to really just develop themselves, a self-help from a millennial perspective that's not so stuck on this psychobabble language. A lot of times people get so intimidated to try to figure out what resources to use because it's a language that is not for the people. You know, it's easy to tell people, oh, go Google it, and you're going to see this big old research article, and people are like, I don't even know what this article says. And that is, for me, my personal opinion, doing an injustice for people. So I want to create resources eventually that uses everyday language for people. So a lot of times you'll see my posts, I use my own language because that is the language that I understand. So last week I made a post about ghosting, and one part of ghosting I put, you know, the players from the Himalayas. Like, that's not psychology language, but that is something that people tend to relate to. Tools. So step one, self-help books. There's so many great books out there. You just go to Google and type into self-help books for whatever you're dealing with. It's fantastic. You know, sometimes we can heal ourselves as part of our journey. You know, another part of our journey could be therapy. Number one question I get in my DMs are, I wish it was, you know, are you single? You look great, but it's not. You know, it is actually. Hey,
okay, so we really have to have another conversation then. This is so funny because my team and I, we were just kind of talking a little bit about the whole dating scene, which again, another conversation.
Yes.
But yeah. So self-help books.
Self-help books and other
And people
comment
coming
that
to you in the DM, what?
Yeah.
Or not coming to you in the DM, I should say.
Everybody
But
asks
instead,
me, where to find a therapist.
Yeah.
So where to find a therapist are multiple resources. One is therapyden.com, so therapyden.com. So D-E-N.
DEN?
Yes, so therapyden.com. There's also psychologytoday.com. Psychologytoday.com is like our version of our Facebook, all the therapists' Facebook. It's a great way you can go ahead and filter all the things that you want in a therapist.
Yeah.
Another one is Therapy for Black Girls. There's another one called Therapy for Black Men. There's something called Google, and just type in therapist in your area. There's so many different avenues for you to find a therapist, and also it's really important for people to know to find you a cultural responsive therapist. So when I say the word cultural responsive, I don't use the word cultural competent, because the word cultural competent means that you can master the most of this knowledge about a culture. And in my opinion, I think that's kind of like impossible to do. But you can be culturally responsive, meaning that you can find a therapist that culturally responds to your needs, not just your wants, but actually needs. So if I'm working with a Black client and it's Sunday and it's like, man, I just got out of church. The church was like 4 hours. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, like, why were you in church for 4 hours? My cultural responsiveness would kick in and be like, oh, you must be like Baptist or Pentecostal.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, like I get it. So finding a therapist that fits you. There's a great therapists out there, there really are. And also they might not be the best fit for what you actually need in life. So
which goes back to that treasure chest, right? Really deciding what's there.
Yes, absolutely.
What shouldn't be there, but maybe needing helps to be held accountable, to remove things, those habits or patterns or people or things, right? That are preventing you from that actual harmony. So I think that self-discovery piece, or what I call that self-inventory piece, by going through our treasure chest, that's going to be the ideal starting place, because then you'll know what resources to actually reach out to.
So therapy, self-help books, and find an accountability partner. Not just about, physical health. Like I usually see people having accountability partners either in like drug and alcohol addictions or abuse, or in like fitness. Like, we need to go ahead and do this X, Y, and Z. But your mental health can also be there as well. Reading self-development books for yourself. My friends and I all made a pact, earlier for New Year's Eve. Let's find a therapist in 2020. As Black men, so it was 3 Black men, so myself and 2 other people, and I was like, we should all be in therapy. Not because anything is in crisis at this moment, but just to have space to just exist. Sometimes we need space to just be ourselves, to take off our masks and say, hey, I actually don't know what to do, or I don't know how to do, or I just want to talk, and I want to just tell you my life experiences. It's a special place to be in a session where everything is literally just about you. It's not about me, not about my opinions or thoughts. It is literally just about you.
Ooh, this is so good. I love all 3 of these self-help books, a plethora. So I would say the starting point then is first that self-inventory.
Absolutely.
It will support you in knowing what types of self-help books to refer to, or maybe the actual clinical professional. And then your third, just making sure you have that additional accountability partner.
Yes, absolutely.
Love it. Love it. This is so good. Okay, so where can we keep up with you, Dr. Vance?
Follow me on the ground. I am a personal person. Like I enjoy talking to people. Sometimes I get overwhelmed when everybody asks me about therapy, because I get excited when my videos light up, and I'm like, oh snap, somebody trying to shoot a shot, and they're like, hey, I need a therapist. I'm like, okay, well. But definitely, Instagram right here, Vanceology. So it's VANCEOLOGY. You could find me on LinkedIn at Dr. Thomas Vance. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. T Vance. VANCE is my name.
You're on all the socials.
I am. If you really type in like Google that Dr. Vance, most likely that will pop up. You can find me somewhere. Reach out, connect. Diana Ross told us to reach out and touch someone's hand. So just reach out. I'm here, I'm personal, I like to laugh, I'm silly. I don't take life that serious because, if you really think about everything that's going wrong in our life, we'll be depressed. And that's another conversation that we'll have to have. So choose life, choose happiness. It's okay to feel sad and upset and angry, and also choose to do a little bit better.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. And it's okay to cry.
Yes, absolutely. It's okay to cry because crying will lead to your healing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was a super beautiful conversation. I love just
Thank you for having me.
Your journey, honestly. Your journey is super inspiring. I'm truly grateful that you shared. Again, the specific word was, it wasn't challenge, it was adjustment.
Yeah.
In and of itself is a mindset that you have to practice. So I love the deliberate choice of words, and how you're using that to really navigate everything that you're experiencing, which is beautiful. And congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Sending me more positive vibes.
Put it in my
Prosperity. and making sure somebody drops in the DM that you really trying to check for.
yeah, but I know that. Don't get too confident.
I'm teasing. Well, thank you again so much for your time. And yes, we're going to drop this for all of you who weren't able to catch the whole conversation. We're going to drop this right here on the Life Reimagined campaign page. And of course, we will be back next week. Same place, same time for Essentials episode 5. We can't wait to see you then. Thank you, Dr. Thomas.
Bye.
Bye.